Have you ever heard of a book so dangerous, so absolutely powerful that an entire state government put a massive bounty on the author's head? And get this, not for a crime of violence, but for the crime of writing something down? Today, we're digging into one of the most explosive documents in American history, David Walker's Appeal. All right, so here's where we're headed. We're going to start by looking at why this little book absolutely terrified the powerful. Then we'll break down how Walker actually built his case. From there, we'll see how the backlash proved his point and what that reveals about oppression's true fear, which might not be what you think. And finally, we'll pull out 4 standards for all of us today before we wrap up with a call to action. So let's go back in time. Picture it. The year is 1829. A free black man living in Boston, David Walker, publishes this small pamphlet. And, for a lot of people, their entire world was about to get turned upside down. I mean, within months, the state of Georgia offered a $10,000 bounty for Walker, dead or alive. Now, back in 1829, that was an absolutely insane amount of money. We're talking enough to buy a nice house outright. All of that for a book? So you have to ask, what in the world was written on those pages? Well, historians call it one of the boldest indictments of slavery ever printed. And that's because it wasn't just some plea for mercy. No, this was a full-blown legal and moral prosecution of the entire system. Now, here's what's so brilliant about it. Walker didn't bring in some new, foreign ideas to make his case. Nope. He just took America's own most sacred words and held them up like a mirror. His whole argument was built on these 6 incredibly powerful pillars. First, he judged America by its own claims, pointing right at the Declaration of Independence. Second, he framed slavery not just as some bad policy, but as a deep spiritual and political crime. Third, he totally rejected the idea of colonization, arguing, hey, America is the home that Black people built with their own hands. Fourth, he laid out a stark warning. Injustice like this will always lead to a crisis. Fifth, he made this incredible call for dignity through study, basically an anti-propaganda manual for his time. And finally, he wasn't just talking to Americans, he was writing for a global audience, for people of color everywhere. He just masterfully turned the Declaration of Independence into a weapon against the nation itself. His question was so simple, but so devastating. How can you sit there and say, all men are created equal, while millions are in chains? He was basically asking, do you guys even understand your own words? And the reaction to the appeal, well, it's just as revealing as the book itself. The absolute panic that swept through the southern states wasn't just a response. It was the ultimate proof that Walker was 100% right. Just look at how fast this all went down. September 1829, the book comes out. By December, just a few months later, Georgia bans it and posts that huge bounty. And within 6 months of that, 4 states had passed laws making it a crime, punishable by death, to hand out the appeal or even to teach a Black person how to read. And that right there proves his whole point, doesn't it? The frantic rush to shut it down just confirmed how powerful it was. See, Walker knew that insecure systems don't debate ideas they don't like, they ban them. The fear wasn't just about a rebellion, it was about the power of knowledge itself. The intensity of that reaction really makes you ask a deeper question. It clearly wasn't just about the possibility of an uprising. So what does a system built on control really truly fear at its core? Was it just the words on a page? Or was it something more fundamental? Something that Walker's call to dignity could spark that they knew they couldn't possibly control? To really get this, we can look at it through the lens of Ifa, the West African spiritual tradition. In this way of thinking, joy isn't just some fluffy, nice-to-have feeling. It's a direct expression of ase, which is like the spiritual life force, the power that actually makes things happen. So things like pleasure, sweetness, and joy, they're considered forms of real power. So here's the crucial point. Systems of oppression, they run on division, fear, and misery. They need people isolated and predictable. Liberation, on the other hand, it's fueled by the total opposite: unity, community, and the wild, unpredictable energy of authentic joy. It's like authoritarian control is fundamentally allergic to that kind of energy. And this view just completely reframes what resistance can look like. That old hip-hop motto, peace, love, unity, and having fun, suddenly that's not just a party slogan. It becomes a deep political counter-strategy. Any act of real collective joy becomes a direct threat to a system that needs us to be scared and miserable. So, okay, what do we do with all this today? Well, Walker's Appeal gives us this incredible timeless blueprint, 4 clear standards for what it means to be an engaged citizen in any society. All right, standard number 1, and this comes straight from Walker's playbook, is consistency. It's all about forcing a society to close that gap between the beautiful things it says and the way it actually operates. I mean, this is basically Walker's whole method in a nutshell. Don't just listen to the pretty words about rights and freedom. Ask the hard question: who do those promises actually apply to in the real world right now? The goal is to just relentlessly push to make the lived reality match the stated values. Second, we have to learn from those desperate attempts to ban Walker's book. We have to see literacy, and I mean all kinds of literacy, as a fundamental tool for self-defense. Think about it. Those laws that made reading a crime punishable by death teach us a lesson that never gets old. When power gets scared, its first move is always to control the flow of information. So in our world today, media literacy isn't some optional soft skill. It's essential safety equipment for just getting by. Now, this third standard is tough. It might be the toughest one of all. We have to actively, consciously refuse to let cruelty become normal. Any society can get used to almost anything. Injustice can become just background noise. It gets normalized by laws, by habit, by silence. Walker's work is this powerful wake-up call to snap out of that hypnosis and refuse to accept that kind of harm as just the way things are. And finally, the fourth standard, we have to understand that repair is always, always better than denial. This really is Walker's core warning to us. When you ignore a deep injustice, it doesn't just vanish. It festers, it grows, and eventually it mutates into a much bigger, much more dangerous crisis down the road. Denial is just a band-aid. Repair is the only real way forward. So when you put all these pieces together, it's clear that David Walker's Appeal is so much more than just some dusty old document. It's a lesson in the technology of liberation. It's a playbook that is just as relevant right now as it was back in 1829. Which leaves us with this final thought. If a system of control truly feeds on our fear and our division, and if authentic, collective joy is basically its kryptonite, then what does our rebellion look like? Personally, in our communities, what is your way of choosing joy?